Russia is currently losing men at a crazy pace and is something that they cannot withhold for the next several months. And it's bringing up a lot of questions, especially because a brand new article came out from Bloomberg, which is stating that Russian students from different countries who come in for visas, they're being told that if they extend their visa, they will be fighting for the Russian army. This is just showcasing how desperate Russia is getting to put new men and new blood on the front lines. So let's go ahead and talk about this. Now, when Russia first started their invasion of Kharkiv on May 10th, remember, prior to that, we started getting new information in. Hey, Russia is putting together a bunch of equipment, tanks, artillery, all this kind of equipment, plus 30,000 troops just outside of Kharkiv, and they're going to try to push in. This announcement came prior to the United States announcing a brand new military package for Ukraine. Remember, at one point, Russia thought that there was going to be no more support from the West, and that Ukraine support and supply chains were dwindling down to a point to where they can kind of march right in, take over what they want, and no one was going to stop them. And I'm going to be honest with you. If there was no new support package from the United States, that probably would have happened. And Russia assumed that it wasn't going to happen, so they moved forward. But then, of course, within, 4 or 5 days, congressmen, congresswomen got together. I guess maybe Ukrainian officials showed everyone, here's the proof that if something doesn't happen soon, there's going to be even more money you have to spend on the line. So they passed something. And because Russia was already putting this massive plan together and already started to kind of push that way, they decided to move forward. And at one point, Russians did make their way about 10 kilometers inside of Kharkiv Oblast before being stopped and pushed back to, I think we're about 5 kilometers. And that front line really has not moved in about a week. And Zelensky even said just on Friday that Russia's offensive in Kharkiv has failed. But it's at incredible losses. You see, even about 3 or 4 days ago, it was announced that roughly across the entire front lines, Russia was losing on average 1,250 men. And as the daily numbers come out, that average seems to actually get higher. For example, let's go through today's numbers. It's 1,270. Now remember that this is across the entire front lines. We're talking about from Kharkiv all the way down to Kherson. But most of these casualties are taking place in Kharkiv, as Russia is trying their best to hit into our area, and now Ukraine, being able to strike into Russian territory just northeast of Kharkiv. They're able to take out all those installations, which we have seen some photos and videos of. On top of that, Russia just yesterday lost 26 tanks, 60 artillery, yeah, that's a big number, and 26 other vehicles. Also add in the fact that yesterday, at least tonight, we found out for the first time in history, Russia has lost a Su-57. This one was a prototype and is something that they use to test out new equipment that could be used on the other 22 of the Su-57s that are currently flying for the Russian military. Now, if you don't know those aircraft, they have a cruise missile on there that have a very... has a very low profile, so it's kind of hard to detect, though Ukrainians have been able to take them down. But because Ukraine was able to take down the prototype, Russia's going to have to take one of the active ones out of service and bring that down, so from 22 to 21. And this is the first time in history that a Su-57 has been hit. We don't know if it was destroyed. I've read some reports that said it was destroyed. Others say that it was damaged. The images that we saw did see some kind of, I would say, a lot of burn marks around the aircraft, which is why people are saying it's damaged. If it was destroyed completely, you would see it in pieces, and at least the satellite imagery we are seeing doesn't really showcase that. But back to the main point. Russia had put 30,000 people on the front lines in Kharkiv. At 1,250 people gone every day, that would mean that Russia would only have about, even if you were going just say 1,000 are coming from there, okay? Russia would only have about 30 days until they exhaust the current people on that front line. which then they could either stop their offensive or they could double down and bring more to it. And with today's new article that came out from Bloomberg, it is quite interesting. The title is Russia Sends Students from Africa to Fight in Its Own War Against Ukraine. For those who don't know, there aren't many countries and continents that send, students to Russia. Let's be honest. You don't see many Americans going over there, Europeans going over there, but you do see other countries. You have Chinese that come in. You've got those folks in Africa. And the funny thing is, we know that Africa is a lot of countries inside of Africa are partnered with Russia on a lot of things. I mean, there's a base in Africa that the United States got kicked out of in favor of Russia. So there's a lot of ties between Russia and countries inside of Africa. Heck, we've seen a lot of the bot farms on TikTok originating in Africa because Russia can't do it because they're blocked through everything. So they pay these smaller companies in different countries inside of Africa, which leads to a lot of my analytics showcasing that the top 3 cities are located in countries inside of Africa, which is quite interesting, but it shows us where Russia is paying off these bot centers to spam certain accounts. All that being said, if you read the article, it talks about how, back when Prigozhin was still around, Russia did have this thing where they would take students and put them in the front lines when they need them. And so that's what we're seeing here, saying that Russia is adding extra manpower to the front lines in Kharkiv by forcing thousands of migrants and foreign students to fight along regular troops, putting them through essentially, we call them the meat grinder, because Russia's technique, especially in Kharkiv and other areas, is just shove as many people down the line or down the throats to try to advance forward. I mean, we've seen this in Bakhmut and Avdiivka and in other areas where Russia doesn't really care about the troops and they would rather use other people's people in order to do this than their own. And it is going to be one of those things where, if you are a student in Africa, you're better off just leaving and going home because you're not going to be able to stay there and be free. Now, these articles have talked about other options. It says here that some of the people have been able to bribe officials to stay in the country and still avoid military service. But for those who cannot afford that, remember, you're an immigrant inside of Russia that doesn't pay a lot, A, and B, you come from a country that doesn't have a lot of money to begin with. So it's one of those things where do you go back to? Do you go back to your own country? Or do you stay in Russia and you fight with the promise of then kind of getting X, Y, and Z afterwards? Where some of these internationals come to Russia and are promised some kind of permanent visa so they can stay in Russia. So that's where you kind of get the whole thing of if they stay and they join the military, they could get that, but at this moment, they're being put not just the front lines, but the first in lines to go into this because Russia does not care what happens to them. As you can see, if you are coming from a country inside of Africa, you have to decide which one is better. But at the alarming rate of losses that Russians are going through, it definitely has a lot of people wondering, there's people actually accepting this? No, that's why Russia is forcing them to do it. If you decide to extend or if you overstay, you're kind of being forced into this. Now, with Russian losses, we're seeing sort of not a change, but we're starting to see now how Russia is dealing differently when it comes to Kharkiv. Now that Ukraine is able to strike into positions just kind of northeast of Kharkiv, Russia is starting to move some of their stuff out of the way. But at the same time, as they're doing that, Ukrainians are monitoring everything. And they're going to wait until it's a perfect time to take all that gear out, which is going to be quite interesting down the line, especially because we're finding out a few different things from the U.S. government. And Kirby just announced actually just recently, he was trying to talk about the situation in which the United States is allowing Ukraine to hit certain targets instead of Russia with certain weapons. And he clarified something that many people didn't know, and that was they never told Ukraine that they can't fire at Russian aircraft that are currently inside of Russia while trying to attack them, which opens up a lot of other questions because that would mean that Ukraine has been getting certain weapons to put on their aircraft they're flying now to attack these Russian aircraft. Am I right? We're also figuring out that the times where Ukraine has used Patriot missiles or other kinds of missiles to take down aircraft in Russian airspace, those weren't drones. It turns out they were, U.S. weapons. So there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes that we'll never truly understand or even know. And I'm sure down the line, I always keep saying when the book comes out in, 5-6 years after Russia's invasion is over, we're going to learn and get a lot of really good questions and answers to these questions when they come out. Because believe you me, I'm one of those that have so many questions about what is going on and how it's going on. And I just keep saying to myself, I just have to wait for this book. We're going to have to wait for the book. And then once the book comes in, I'm sure it will explain a lot of different stuff. The only other thing I just kind of want to bring up is the fact that Ukrainians, when they're being sent to the front lines, they actually have motivation to go. They're going with the mindset like, I need to protect my country. I need to stand up for my family and my friends and my government and my country. While the Russians, on the other hand, are just kind of being put there. And usually the team or the army with more heart and more spirit to do it, they're going to do better. Which is why we're still seeing, I think right now we're seeing a 1-to-8 ratio. For every one Ukrainian loss, it's 8 Russians. And that is massive. Because Ukrainians right now have their heart in it, while Russians are just being told to do it, and they're being told what to do, and they don't want to be there. And one really good example, which is a really sad story, I'm just going to share it with you real quickly, is a video that's been circulating of a gentleman who's in Kharkiv, or at least his son was in Kharkiv. He's 23 years old, and he was fighting, and he was on the phone with his dad, and he was saying, Dad, it's really bad here. It is really, really bad here. And then unfortunately, a few days later, his son was taken out when Russia attacked it. Now remember, Russia is just randomly throwing things in Kharkiv. Both the city and the state. They're just doing it for fun at this rate. And so after he had this phone call, he found his son was taken out by Russians. He said that he's now going to Kharkiv, and he will be taking his son's spot. And then gave like a really big warning at the Russians, and I kind of translated it kind of loosely, but it was, Russian men, don't come here. You will be killed. You took my son. And then kind of in a message to the other dads, he says, I will take your son out. He actually says, I will kill your son. Don't come here at all. Which, once again, Ukrainians have motivation. They've lost friends, families, their houses. They have nothing. Someone who has nothing to live for anymore, if they've lost things, they are so now like in the zone of like, look, I got to do this. I've got to defend my family, my friends. They've taken my mother, my son, my brother, my aunt, my whatever. I need to go ahead and defend their lives, and I'll do whatever it takes. That motivation that Ukrainians have is another planet. Something that here in the United States, we haven't felt since like 9/11 or World War II. Where, hey, Pearl Harbor happened. I need to go fight for my country. Or 9/11 happened. I need to fight for my country. Ukraine is having essentially a 9/11 almost every week. And so every week they're reminded of how horrible Russia is and how much they need to do whatever it takes to make sure that Russia is not in their country anymore. And because of that motivation, that's why Ukraine's going to win this. Because Russians are just being forced into it. Ukrainians are volunteering because they know it's the right thing to do, and they'll do whatever it takes. Anyway, that being said, let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe and turn on notifications. We are, I think, like 1,000 hours watch, whatever, until we can finally get this channel moving here on YouTube. So if you stay to the end, please know I greatly appreciate it. Also, one little thing, we're starting now a subscription on TikTok. So if you do follow us on TikTok at Joey Contino, we're doing a subscription which shows you a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that we do. It's only like $3 a month, and you get subscriber based videos which just kind of show you my day-to-day stuff. It's not really new stuff. It's like, hey, I'm here doing this, I'm doing that. So if you want to go ahead and check out those videos, once again, it's only $3, and you're supporting me and my family, which, we send most of our money over to our family in Ukraine anyway. So you're supporting not only us here, the 2 Ukrainians in my house, and our family in Ukraine. All that being said, please stay safe, and I'll see you later.